Good afternoon. So I make art. When I started with this talk, I tried to talk about something general. I didn't want to speak about myself because I don't like to focus so much on that. And I wrote this enormous, elaborate thing about art in general, but 2 days ago I realized I can't do it. So now the talk is about myself, so excuse. So I'm an artist. I make art. And I started writing this thing. I think I rewrote it 13 times, starting to write about something general, so that the focus doesn't fall upon me, because I'm not so comfortable with that. Also, as an artist, we communicate by means of hands, not really the spoken word. So it's not my medium. But I love the subject matter, so I'll try to convey as much as I can in the 15 minutes. To explain the construct of I make art, I'm going to use an analogy to explain how one fits into that. So I brought with a bucket of water, and this is honestly water all the way from the Bainskloof Pass in the Western Cape that a mate of mine flew up yesterday for me, so it's legit, I'm not lying. The water in there is from the river. And why I brought it is, if I contain the water in a bucket and I bring it here, the river ceases to be a river. So it's not river anymore. But if I put my hand in it, and you can see the wetness, it's tangible, but it's ungraspable. So I can't take it out and show you water. And that's very much how art is. Now, to fit in the eye in art, I need you to imagine this whole stage a river, a huge river. And different from other rivers, it flows over continents, and where it hits the sea, it becomes current. And then when it hits continent again, it becomes river again. So it's just a continuous river that flows. And I'm standing in it. And the current isn't strong, so it's about waist deep, and it's not cold, it's lukewarm, it's beautiful. And there's enormous bush willow trees over it in places, and other places in an open plain, and it just flows and it flows. And I'm standing in it, and as soon as I put my hands in the water, it flows through my hands. And the important aspect to notice is it doesn't flow from me, but it flows through me. And that's how you make art. You're not the source, you're the conduit. It's a difficult concept, but not so much. I think we can all understand this enormous thing flowing. And where I am, I'm here. So I can tell you about the water flowing past here, the bush willow I see, and other aspects. And that's all I can do. And this you only realize, I think, a little bit later in your career. And that's the context of how the eye fit into make art. Now, a little bit upriver, some years ago, it all started with my parents, and I'm giving history as a bit of context, because it will give flow to what I've done after. So here they are, they bohemians, they hippies, 1960s, 1970s. That cultural meme of Paris spread all the way down the African continent, and they were so happily immersed in it. You can see they happily immersed in something. So in our first year of school, we started working on Bruce's house. Now, Bruce was my father, and he believed if we call him father, it will be an elevated term. So he wanted to be regarded as just another someone. So we had to call him Bruce. But he was just so vastly different from any other someone that he wasn't just someone, he was Bruce. And that was larger than any other character. And I think somewhere in the 60s or 70s, my mom and himself sat in front of a lava lamp, you know, those old wax things of globules, and they got tipsy, and they thought, let's build a house like this. So they drew out designs, and they started this enormous, elaborate project. And about 10 years into the project, these organic shapes were now protruding out the windows, or out the walls, these big things, these globules, and my brother and myself had to weld them from solid steel sections. And a neighbor came over and he said, but Bruce, these things are so heavy, it will all the walls will fall over if you build it. And he said, no man, we take a steel column and we put it underneath each window. And I wasn't an artist yet, I was 11, but I knew this is not good. This is not going to fly. So we did this for 10 years. It ceased due to the impossibility. But Bruce was quite like the character Ali Fox in Paul the Roux's book, The Mosquito Coast. He had this idea, and we go for it until you can't go no further. And, well, I learned a great deal from this. What I learned is I can make non-utilitarian objects, things that you can't use for anything other than art. And that was the start of it. In the same years, my mother, artist herself, who's here today, taught us drawing. So we had to do a still life every day that she marked and graded. And that was amongst having to wrestle and run and eat steak in the morning and 13 years of rugby. And, you know, it was like an army camp that taught you many things. We were taught philosophy and sociology, and it was incredible, but it was quite intense as a childhood. But anyway, the drawing, she graded, and she would always ask, "Do you want the nice answer or the real one?" And it would be, "Give me the real one," when it upsets you, and then she gives you a nice one, and you're upset because you know she's lying. But it taught us, I think, how to look without representing what you see out there by simplifying the world. And I think in a way it teaches the mind of a child to maybe look and see for yourself instead of using agreed upon simplification of a complex world. This was varsity. I did go study. I thought I'll emancipate myself from childhood and not go do art because I didn't want more childhood, but if you energy in it. So it kept on flowing. And that was my second year. I won a national. There's the folks. It's moving on. The Honest Sculpture Works, after varsity, is a studio I started. I try to work with what I have that others might not, what I have seen others might not have. And I realized that in South Africa we have ample workspace. We have a 25% current unemployment rate, and it's always been quite bad. So I thought instead of outsourcing my manufacturing, I'll do it myself. So I set up a studio and I started casting 4 different metals. And we have now, it's now 20 years next year that we turn. And most of my staff has been with me for 19, 18, 17 years as we built up a larger and larger team. We now cast 4 metals, 8 tons of bronze a year. We do digital work from 2 millimeters to 10 meters. We do stone facilities so we can carve things. And it's a wonderful environment because this freed me up to focus on making sculpture in its multifariousness. So this is the studio. So it started in a one garage space with maybe 5 people in and grew and grew and grew. Now it's, I think, 2,000 meters under one roof. We cast stainless steel. And we do, as I said, really large things. It was a sculpture I made for University of Cape Town. That was the clay, and I made it in stone. I won't have enough time to do everything, so I'm going to go fast. I started realizing I must try to identify being here in the river. What do I see? And what can I communicate to people elsewhere? It's no use I try to communicate as a New Yorker or as a European because I'm not that. I'm here. And South Africa, I find, quite sharp on contrasts. So South Africa, sharp contrast, bright sun, dark shadows, but immensely invigorating when it comes to energy our artists can feed off. And this is my first clumsy attempt to work with both the continuity and discontinuity of our environment, with the chaos and some order. This vitality we have. And I call this op land en water, or on land and water. And then I started thinking, if I want to speak from here, I must speak with here. So I started taking natural materials from the surrounding environment. My mom comes originally from Machadodorp, my father from Vredendal. I used to beret also, now I just lisp. But the stone used in this sculpture is Belfast granite, or gabbro. And that's about 2 hours from my studio to the east. So I started replacing the bronze with more and more stone until it became almost just stone. And sometimes I'll go back. I'll do installation. This sculpture was last year. The bronze in it is 1 ton, and the stone is about 8-9 tons. And the addition, it's bronze, so you can cast a couple. So one is going to Sydney, one is possibly going to Israel or, I don't know, Switzerland. The other one is to Botswana, and there's one in Franschhoek, which is lovely that somebody decided to buy them. Because if they don't, I can't make the next sculpture. That is the flow of creation. Now, no artist, I think, go to study art because you want to make money. You'll be quite silly if you think you're going to do that. So you look at artists that preceded you, guys upriver from you, and you like what they did, and that inspires you, and you want to contribute to that economy. That's the gift economy. The market economy is a necessary secondary engagement, and almost totally irrelevant if you speak about the gift or the possible transformative gift artwork has to offer. But like so many other things in the world, the one will not be with the other. So where we don't have a country that now we don't have enough resource to support artists in their endeavors. So you have to wing it and do it yourself, and maybe do some work that you can sell, and that can pay for work that you can't sell. This is a sculpture we made from sticks, just normal bloekomlatte that you buy it for 50 Rand for 10. And the idea of this was to make a large anti-monument, because what we as South Africans and most other places in the world know is public art proper. We know the hero on the horse, or the state or church propaganda, but we don't know art for art's sake in public spaces, especially not in South Africa, because we don't have the money to do so. Yet there is some developers that's starting to put sculpture into public spaces that we can live with. And there's a couple of examples, but to think of is the big lying fig in front of Appleback and Santon and some others. So you'll see, I put her up now, this is in front of a gallery, and she has a very vinnige hairstyle, and I didn't like it, so the next morning I cut it off and I hairdressed her, stylist. There you go. Woof. It's a lovely medium. It's inexpensive. You can model in it direct. You don't have to model, mold, and cast. I'm going to move on. This is Homage to Hermes. This was 8.5 meters tall, 25 tons of slate. I thought, oh, what an awesome gift economy sculpture. If somebody comes into the gallery and you have in a 10-meter room, there's 9-meter sculpture just lying there. And then they sold it, weird enough. And one went to Canada and Westlow, one went to Damme, one went to Graaf Reinet. And there's one in front of Santon's Apple building. So that's in Graaf Reinet. Maybe it's close to that map. Then I tried thatch, and thatch was beautiful because we have this dried, beautiful material to work with, but it didn't last. So if you put it outside not long, and the birds took out what they want, and people touch it, and the grass moves. And then I discovered rammed earth. Rammed earth, indigenous method for building, one of the oldest in the world, still widest used in Africa. You take soil, you compact it with a stabilizer, and you can create the most beautiful sculptures. And it's ideally suited for making large sculptures, and a sculpture can give. A sculptor can give to like a school or a town or whatever. But it doesn't sit well within the market, and it doesn't sit well within our ideas of permanence. But it is a fantastic material. This is a wall we made for a hotel in Cape Town, Bantry Bay, and it's a terroir wall. So we went to the 100 top farms of South Africa, wine farms, dug a hole on each, took out soil from 1.5 meters, 700 in the top, took a photograph of the profile, and remade it into small blocks that fit into a map. So you can now stand in front of it, and you can go smell Plettenberg Bay, Stellenbosch, Olifantsrivier, and actually get the terroir. And why it is special is our soil is immensely diverse, as is our geology. So this is more Belfast granite that I started working into rammed earth. And this is just granite that I started carving. It took me about 8 years to grow the necessary confidence to do so, because the stone is so hard and resilient. I'm just going to put on the last little video. This is a sculpture we built in Gordons Bay. He's the big brother of Michelangelo's David. David's only 5.4, he would be standing 7.2. So he's proper big. And instead of making the sculpture and casting in our studio, I made a mold in steel, took it to site the similar way that we did the Homage to Hermes in Canada and everywhere, and then built it and carved in Cape Town for 6 weeks with a team of my studio assistants. And it's a lovely way to work. To finish off, it's hard to say exactly what art has to offer, but there's no conclusion also to what I'm saying today, because this flow of this river continues. It will continue after me as well. But in our modern world, with all the information we have, we tend to focus so strongly on specifics, like the bucket, and we confuse that for the river. And art has the capacity to create a embodied, contextualized understanding of the world, more so than most other fields of communication. And I think that's the gift of art. Thank you very much.